Hi everyone, my name is Mitch Stewart. I'm the Battleground State Director here at Obama for America, and we want to thank you for watching this great film. We really hope you appreciated it. We want to thank Davis Guggenheim for directing this film, and we want to thank Tom Hanks for narrating. We're lucky today to be joined by David Axelrod, who was there for many of these moments these past 3 years and has agreed to share his unique perspective. Thank you for joining us, David.
It's great to be here, and I'm so glad people have had a chance to see that film. I was there for much of it, and I think Davis really faithfully captured what it was like to go through those moments and to watch the president make these decisions with real grace and with integrity and resoluteness. So I'm glad everybody has a chance to see a little of what I got to see when I was in the White House.
That's great. And many of you have submitted questions in the run-up to the screening tonight, and David has agreed to answer a few of those questions. In addition, if you'd like to ask David a question right now, you can do so through Twitter. And please ask those questions with the hashtag #RoadTraveled. So with that, David, I think we'll get started and we'll ask the first question. The first question comes from Philip K. Devine, and he asks, how did your family react to the passage of the Affordable Care Act?
Yeah, well, Philip obviously knows something about my history to ask that question. I had a child. I have a child who's 30 years old now, but when she was 7 months old, my daughter Lauren was in her crib. My wife Susan found her limp and blue in her crib. Susan thought Lauren had died, and it turned out that she had had a seizure, and it would be the first of thousands of seizures that were tremendously debilitating to her. We went through surgeries and all kinds of issues in the ensuing years. But at that time, I was a young reporter living on a pretty modest salary. We had insurance, but it didn't cover much of what she needed, particularly her medications, which we needed to keep her from having seizures and to keep her alive. And so the stress was incredible, and we almost went bankrupt. So the night that the Health Care Act passed, I was with the President and some of the and the Vice President and some of the folks who worked on the issue in the Roosevelt Room in the White House. We were watching the votes come in. Found myself getting up sort of unexpectedly to me, walking into my office, closing the door, and having a big cry. And the reason I had this big cry was because I realized that in the future, families won't go through the pressures and the anxieties that we went through when my daughter was sick and we were young. And it brought home to me the real impact of the decisions that are made, of the initiatives that you take, of the leadership that the President has provided on an issue that's going to make a real difference in the lives of so many Americans in the future.
That's great. Thank you, David. Our next question from Twitter is, what plans does President Obama have to resolve our debt crisis?
Well, there's no doubt that this is a challenge that we have to resolve. You know, when President Clinton left office in 2000, we had projected budget surpluses of $2 trillion, and we were on the road to erasing the debt. Through the policies that followed, debt mounted, deficits mounted. When the President came to office, he was handed a deficit of over $1 trillion and an economic crisis that required emergency steps that would add to the deficits, and a depression in revenues that would subtract from the amount of money coming in, which also would add to the deficits. And all of this has created a debt challenge that we have to resolve. We have to do it in such a way as not to slow down our economic recovery, and we've been careful to try and avoid that. And in the long term, we have to do it in a balanced way, and this is what the President's been fighting for. He's laid out a $4 trillion plan to reduce the deficits over the next decade. Some of it would come from cuts that have already been made. He and the Congress agreed to cuts last summer of over $1 trillion in discretionary spending programs. Some of it would come from savings in Medicare and health programs, so-called entitlement programs. Some of it would come but some of it has to come from additional revenues. And this is where, Mitch, the big fight is, because all the proposals that the Republicans have offered suggest that we can resolve this issue without asking any more from anybody. In fact, they would continue the Bush tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans into the future at a cost of nearly $1 trillion in the next decade. We simply can't do that. If we do that, what's going to happen is we're going to have to make deep cuts in the very things that we need to grow our economy, in education, in research and development, in infrastructure to rebuild our country, and in clean energy so that we can get control of our energy future. These are investments we simply have to make. So we have to strike a balance and ask that everybody does their fair share so that we can move forward, deal with our debt crisis, but not in a way that cripples our fundamental ability to grow or our fundamental commitments to each other as Americans.
Great. Thank you, David. Our next question is, attacking Iran will lead to higher gas prices and war. Does the President think risking the economic recovery and U.S. lives is worth it?
The President's been pretty clear on this. All this, what he called loose talk of war, is destructive. It's destructive in terms of its impact, obviously, on oil prices, and it's destructive in the climate that it creates. There is no doubt that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and the President's made that clear, and the world has united around him in making that clear to Iran. He's painstakingly put in place over a series of years, working with our allies across the world, withering sanctions that have put the Iranian economy in a state of disarray. We believe that there is the time and space to let those sanctions sink in, to ratchet them up further, and to put pressure on the Iranian government to come to terms with what they must do. And we need to let those work. That said, the President's not taking any options off the table, and we have to be very sober and serious about this. What we don't need, though, is for it to become a kind of casual campaign issue as it has in recent weeks, because that neither helps the situation in terms of containing and blocking Iran from producing a nuclear weapon, nor does it help the world oil markets, which are impacted by all of the speculation around what's going on in Iran.
Great, thank you, David. And this is a question that I know a lot of our supporters who are tuning in will love to know the answer to. Rob asks, David, he just read Audacity to Win from David Plouffe, and he said it was a pretty incredible process. His question is, how often did you guys disagree?
First of all, on behalf of Plouffe, who's now a public servant, I want to thank you for buying the book. Every little bit helps. But I must say, I've been privileged to work with David for a long time. We were partners for 6 years before the campaign. And I know it seems odd to say, but we rarely have disagreements. I have such a high regard for him. We have a mutual respect, and we both had the same shared goals, and so we rarely disagreed. I can think of one instance in the 2 years that we were running in which we had a real disagreement, and it was over something trivial. It was over a scheduling issue, but it was a joy to work with David. He's incisive, he's brilliant, and he's passionate. And we shared a passion for electing the President, changing the direction of the country, pointing to a brighter day. I think it's what basically brought all of us together. And David was a great leader of that effort, and he's doing a great job in the White House today.
Great, thank you, David. Our next question comes from James Isles, and he asks, how realistic is the West Wing TV show? I'm only just getting into it, and I love it.
Well, first of all, I got to ask where you've been, because this show's been off the air for quite a while, but I'm glad you're catching up with it. And the truth is, you know, it obviously took dramatic liberties, because that's the nature of television, and every day wasn't filled with these dramas to the degree that you see on TV. But the pace of what goes on in the White House and the array of things that a White House has to deal with and a president has to deal with were surprisingly close to that. Now, they had a lot of people who had worked in the White House advising them on this series, but when you worked there, there were days when I thought to myself, you know, I remember the day the president was dealing with the auto intervention, what to do there. We had a couple of meetings on that. He had a long meeting on Afghanistan, and there were several other intervening things before we reconvened on the auto situation, and he made a decision. I went back to my office, slumped in my chair. The phone rang. It was Rahm Emanuel, the chief of staff, and he said, "Get in here. Fargo's underwater." And at that moment, I said, "What is this? An episode of The West Wing?" So there are days like that in the White House, and the pace of it and the sense of gravity when you're there is a really profound thing, and they captured that.
That's great. Thank you, David. Caitlin asks, how can we prevent young Americans who went into the workforce in the past 4 years from being another lost generation?
Well, I think that it goes to a larger question about the nature of the economy. We need to accelerate job creation, and as you know, we've had 24 months straight now of private sector job growth, and that's positive, and it's been gaining speed, and that's positive. But there are really two economic challenges, and the second one is as great or greater than the first in terms of our long-term prosperity, and that is, how do we create an economy in which work pays, not just in which people are working, but in which work pays, in which people know that if they work hard, that they can get ahead. If they act responsibly, they'll be rewarded for acting responsibly, where everybody plays by the same rules, everyone gets a fair shake and a fair shot. That's how we built the American economy into the envy of the world, with a growing, thriving middle class, and a sense that you could get the education you need, the training you need to make the most of your life, and that's where we need to go. We need to augment and enhance educational opportunity in this country, so everyone gets the training they need. And the President's launched an initiative through community colleges for folks who aren't necessarily going down the college track, but are looking for technical training to take up jobs of the future in conjunction with businesses. I mean, we have a whole array of initiatives that we need to pursue. We need to invest in research and development, so that we're on the cutting edge of innovation and technology. We've always been there. We've got the great technology companies in the world coming here or starting here, but we need to stay on that edge. A lot of the great technology that is behind Google and the internet and so on, these began with government research. We have to continue that commitment. We have to invest in a new energy policy, so that we're not only increasing production of oil and gas in the short term, but we're developing new energy sources all the time. And we've doubled the use of renewable energies in this country, of wind and solar and biofuels, and all of this is producing new work opportunities. But we have to have an aggressive plan to grow this economy in a way that offers the broadest possible opportunity, and that's a lot of what this election is about, because the guys on the other side have a different view, which is, if we just do what we've done before in the last decade, cut taxes at the top, release Wall Street to make its own rules, allow Wall Street to make its own rules, and essentially back off, and at the same time cut education, cut research and development, and the other things we need, that somehow we're going to prosper from that, and that young people are going to find the opportunities that they need and deserve. That's not going to happen. And so this is a very consequential election from the standpoint of a young person just entering this workforce.
Great. Thank you, David. And we appreciate your time that you spent with us. We have time for one more question, and that is, what will the President's re-election campaign do about the voter ID laws in states targeting middle-class, elderly, and low-income voters?
Look, there's no doubt that Republican legislatures and governors across this country have made an attempt to try and win the election of 2012 and 2011 by passing laws that are restrictive, that are meant to discourage participation, particularly